The Beverly Hills Hotel ballroom fell into stunned silence as 500 of Hollywood's most powerful executives watched Ellen DeGeneres lean into her microphone with that signature smile everyone thought they knew. It was supposed to be a simple charity panel about kindness in entertainment, but what happened next would shatter Ellen's carefully crafted image forever. "Judge Judy is just mean," Ellen said, her voice dripping with condescension. "That's not real justice. That's just being cruel." For TV ratings, the audience shifted uncomfortably in their gold-rimmed chairs, crystal glasses frozen halfway to lips. A studio head from Warner Brothers whispered to his assistant, "Did she really just say that?" Near the front, Portia de Rossi's knuckles went white as she gripped her purse, knowing something terrible was about to unfold. But Judge Judy didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still, her steel-gray eyes locked on Ellen like a hawk studying its prey. The legendary judge who had destroyed countless liars in her courtroom slowly reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a thick manila folder. The sound of papers rustling cut through the silence like a blade. Ellen's smile faltered for just a split second as she noticed the folder, but she had no idea what was coming. The folder contained 47 documented complaints from Ellen's own staff, members, detailing years of psychological torment behind the scenes of America's most beloved talk show. Stories of employees being fired for making eye contact, of producers crying in bathroom stalls, of the woman who preached "be kind," creating what one former staffer called a culture of fear and intimidation. Judge Judy's fingers drummed once against the table, a sound that echoed like a judge's gavel in the hushed ballroom. James Corden, the panel moderator, tried desperately to lighten the mood, but his nervous laughter died in his throat as Judy's penetrating stare silenced him mid-sentence. Entertainment. Tonight's cameras captured every micro-expression, every bead of sweat forming on Ellen's forehead, every twitch of her forced smile beginning to crack. What Judge Judy revealed next didn't just expose Ellen's lies. It destroyed everything America believed about daytime television's sweetheart, turning her own weapon of public humiliation against her in the most devastating way imaginable. If you want to see how Judge Judy used Ellen's own staff complaints to completely obliterate her in front of Hollywood's elite, keep watching, because what she reveals next will leave you speechless. Hit subscribe now because this story gets absolutely brutal. For 15 excruciating seconds, Judge Judy said absolutely nothing. She methodically opened the manila folder, her weathered fingers moving with the precision of someone who had spent decades dismantling liars piece by piece. Ellen's confident smile began to waver as she waited for the applause that never came. Instead, the ballroom filled with the suffocating tension of 500 people holding their breath, watching a master at work. A publicist in the third row frantically typed on her phone, already crafting damage control statements she prayed she wouldn't need. Ellen fidgeted with her wedding ring, that nervous tick she thought no one noticed. "Well," she laughed awkwardly, trying to fill the void. "I mean, we all know Judy can be a little intense, right?" Her voice cracked slightly on the word intense, betraying the panic creeping into her chest. But Judge Judy remained stone-cold silent, scanning through documents like a prosecutor preparing for cross-examination. The cameras caught every detail, Ellen's forced smile dissolving, her fingers drumming against the table, the way her eyes kept darting to that damning folder. James Corden cleared his throat desperately. "Perhaps we should move on to our next question about..." But Judge Judy raised one finger, and the room fell dead silent again. That single gesture carried more authority than any gavel. She slowly removed her reading glasses, cleaned them with deliberate care, and placed them back on her nose. The simple act felt ceremonial, like a judge putting on robes before delivering a death sentence. Ellen's breathing quickened as she realized this wasn't going away. This wasn't some playful celebrity banter that would be forgotten by morning. Judge Judy was preparing to do what she did best: destroy someone who thought they were untouchable. The folder contained Ellen's darkest secrets, and America's toughest judge was about to read them aloud to Hollywood's most powerful people. Ellen had picked a fight with the wrong person, and everyone in that ballroom was about to witness her complete annihilation. Judge Judy finally looked up from her folder, her piercing eyes locking onto Ellen with the intensity of a predator who had cornered its prey. When she spoke, her voice cut through the ballroom like a scalpel through silk. "Ellen," she began, each word measured and deliberate, "before you lecture me about being mean, perhaps we should discuss what your own employees have to say about your version of kindness." Ellen's face went completely white, her signature smile vanishing like smoke. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, Just a strangled gasp that the microphone picked up and amplified to every corner of the room. Judge Judy lifted the first document from her folder with theatrical precision. Complaint number 1, filed by your former head writer Sarah Mitchell. Quote, Ellen creates an atmosphere of terror where staff members are afraid to breathe wrong. She fires people for looking at her directly, claiming it's disrespectful. I've seen grown adults reduced to tears simply for asking clarification on a script change. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers, phones emerging from purses and pockets, as Hollywood's elite scrambled to record this career-ending moment. A prominent agent near the back audibly gasped, "Oh my God, this is really happening." Ellen finally found her voice, but it came out shaky and desperate. "Judy, those are disgruntled former employees making things up. You know how it is when people get fired, they—" Judge Judy held up her hand, silencing Ellen mid-sentence like she was managing an unruly courtroom. "I'm not finished," she said coldly. Complaint number 7 from your former segment producer Marcus Johnson. Quote, Ellen made me stand in the hallway for 3 hours because I accidentally put sugar in her coffee instead of artificial sweetener. When I tried to explain it was an honest mistake, she screamed that I was too stupid to work in television and should go back to waiting tables. The room was in complete shock. Portia de Rossi had her face buried in her hands, unable to watch her wife's public destruction. James Corden sat frozen, his mouth hanging open, completely powerless to control what had become a public execution. A studio executive whispered to his colleague, "This is worse than Harvey Weinstein, at least he hit it." Judge Judy wasn't done. She flipped to another page, her movements calm and methodical while Ellen squirmed in her chair like a defendant awaiting sentencing. Complaint number 12. Judge Judy continued, her voice growing stronger with each revelation. From your former talent coordinator Lisa Chen. Quote, Ellen forces guests to rehearse their emotional reactions multiple times until she's satisfied, with the level of tears or excitement. She told a cancer survivor that her story wasn't sad enough and made her practice crying on cue. When the woman couldn't produce tears fast enough, Ellen said she was wasting everyone's time with her fake sob story. The gasps from the audience grew louder, several celebrities shaking their heads in disgust. A prominent talk show host in the fourth row muttered, "I knew something was off about her show." Ellen tried desperately to regain control, her voice rising to near hysteria. "This is character assassination. You can't just take the word of—" But Judge Judy's stare could have frozen lava. "I have 47 documented complaints, Ellen. 47, all detailing the same pattern of psychological abuse, humiliation, and toxic behavior. You want to call me mean? I'm direct with people who waste my time in court. You torture people who are just trying to make a living." The folder in Judge Judy's hands seemed to grow heavier with each word, containing secrets that would end Ellen's career and destroy everything America thought they knew about daytime television's supposed queen of kindness. The woman who built an empire on Be Kind was about to learn that karma has no expiration date. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she watched Ellen's world collapse in real time. But she wasn't finished, not even close. "Ellen, do you remember your former executive producer David Martinez?" she asked, her voice deceptively calm. Ellen's eyes widened in pure terror because she knew exactly who David Martinez was and what he had witnessed behind the scenes. "David worked for you for 8 years," Judge Judy continued, pulling out a thicker document. "He documented everything. Every tantrum, every firing, every moment you dropped your fake smile the second the cameras stopped rolling." Ellen lunged forward desperately, her composure completely shattered. "Judy, please, this isn't fair. You're destroying my life." But Judge Judy's expression remained stone cold. "Fair? Let me tell you what isn't fair. David's complaint states that you fired a pregnant production assistant because, and I quote, her morning sickness was ruining the energy on set. You told her that having a baby was her choice, and you weren't going to let it affect your ratings." The ballroom exploded. Several celebrities stood up in shock, a prominent actress shouting, "That's disgusting!" The sound of chairs scraping against marble echoed as people shifted away from Ellen, like she was radioactive. But Judge Judy was just getting started. She held up a thick stack of photographs, each one showing Ellen in moments she never wanted public. "David also provided photographic evidence," she announced, causing every phone in the room to point toward the stage. Pictures of Ellen screaming, at crew members throwing scripts at assistants, and my personal favorite, Ellen making a janitor clean up coffee. She deliberately spilled, just to watch him crawl around on his hands and knees. Ellen tried to grab for the photos, but Judge Judy pulled them back with the reflexes of someone who had dealt with desperate defendants for decades. You want to see mean, Ellen? Judge Judy's voice rose for the first time, commanding the attention of every person in that ballroom. Mean is what you did to Jennifer Walsh, your former makeup artist. David documented how you fired her the day before Christmas because she asked for a raise to pay for her daughter's cancer treatments. You told her, and I have this on audio recording, that her problems weren't your responsibility, and maybe she should find a job that actually pays well. The room went dead silent except for the sound of Ellen sobbing. Real tears this time, not the manufactured emotion she was famous for on her show. James Corden tried one last desperate attempt to save the event. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we should... Judge Judy's glare could have stopped a freight train. Sit down, James, I'm not finished. Her command was so authoritative that Corden immediately dropped back into his chair like a scolded child. Ellen was hyperventilating now, mascara running down her cheeks as she realized there was no way out. No PR team could spin this. No legal team could stop it. Judge Judy had her dead to rights with evidence that would end everything. Here's what's really mean, Ellen, Judge Judy continued, her voice building to a crescendo that would be replayed millions of times across social media. Mean is building a billion-dollar empire on the backs of employees you treated like garbage while pretending to be America's sweetheart. Mean is preaching be kind, while creating a workplace so toxic that 3 people attempted suicide because of the psychological abuse you put them through. Ellen's head snapped up, her eyes wide with horror. Yes, Ellen. Suicide attempts. David documented those too, including the note left by your former assistant Tommy Richards that specifically mentioned how your daily humiliation made him feel worthless. The ballroom was in complete chaos now. Celebrities were streaming toward the exits, unable to associate with Ellen for another second. Portia de Rossi had disappeared entirely, probably already calling divorce lawyers. Entertainment reporters were broadcasting live from their phones, knowing they were witnessing the most spectacular career implosion in Hollywood history. Ellen sat alone at the panel table, completely destroyed, while Judge Judy calmly organized her papers like she had just finished another successful day in court. This is just the beginning of how Judge Judy systematically destroyed Ellen's carefully crafted image with documented evidence of abuse that goes deeper than anyone imagined. If you think that was brutal, wait until you see Ellen's desperate attempt to fight back and how Judge Judy delivers the final blow that ends everything. Hit that like button if you're as shocked as that audience was, because Judge Judy isn't done destroying Ellen's legacy yet. Ellen wiped her mascara-stained cheeks and suddenly her tears stopped. Something dark flashed in her eyes as desperation turned into rage. She had nothing left to lose, and that made her dangerous. You know what, Judy? Ellen snarled, her voice completely different now, stripped of all pretense. You think you're so righteous sitting there with your little folder, but you're just a bitter old woman who gets off on humiliating people on national television. At least I built something. What have you done except scream at poor people who can't fight back? Judge Judy didn't even blink. She had been waiting for this moment, for Ellen to show her true colors in front of everyone. There it is, she said quietly, her voice cutting through Ellen's hysteria like a knife through butter. The real Ellen DeGeneres. No cameras, no script, no fake smile, just pure venom. She reached into her folder one more time and pulled out a single sheet of paper that made Ellen's face go ashen. This is a sworn affidavit from Dr. Patricia Williams, the therapist you hired to counsel your staff members after what you called workplace incidents. The few remaining audience members leaned forward, sensing that Judge Judy was about to deliver a knockout punch that would end this fight forever. Dr. Williams states that in her 30 years of practice, she has never seen a workplace environment as psychologically destructive as yours. She treated 17 of your employees for panic attacks, depression, and what she clinically diagnosed as workplace-induced PTSD. Ellen tried to interrupt, but Judge Judy's voice rose like thunder. She also states that you personally called her office and threatened to ruin her career if she didn't stop treating your employees because, and I quote, their therapy sessions were making them too confident and harder to control. Ellen shot up from her chair, pointing a shaking finger at Judge Judy. You're lying. That's not what happened. She was filling their heads with lies about me. The outburst was so violent that the remaining security guards stepped closer to the stage. But Judge Judy remained seated, calm as a lake before a storm. Ellen, you just proved my point. You're more concerned about controlling people than helping them heal from the trauma you caused. She folded her hands on the table, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more power than any shout. In my courtroom, I deal with liars every single day, but I've never encountered someone as manipulative and cruel as you while hiding behind a mask of kindness. The ballroom was nearly empty now, just a handful of reporters and staff members too shocked to leave. Ellen looked around desperately, realizing she was completely alone. Even her own security team had backed away, unwilling to be associated with her toxic brand for another second. James Corden had disappeared entirely, probably already in damage control meetings with his own network. Judge Judy stood up slowly, gathering her papers with the dignity of someone who had just delivered justice. You called me mean, Ellen. But mean would be destroying you without giving you a chance to defend yourself. What I did was present evidence and let the truth speak for itself. Ellen made one last desperate attempt to save face, her voice cracking with defeat. This isn't over, Judy. I'll sue you for defamation. Judge Judy turned back with a look that could freeze hell itself. Sue me with what lawyers, Ellen? Which ones are going to want to defend the woman who tortured her employees? Good luck finding anyone willing to touch this case. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the finality of a judge's gavel. Ellen stood alone on the stage, surrounded by empty chairs and the ruins of her empire, finally understanding what it felt like to be completely powerless. Within 30 minutes of Judge Judy walking off that stage, the internet exploded like a nuclear bomb. Despite desperate attempts by Ellen's legal team to enforce NDAs, shaky phone footage from inside the ballroom was already spreading faster than wildfire. TMZ's breaking news alert crashed their servers as millions tried to access the story simultaneously. Judge Judy destroys Ellen with employee abuse evidence dominated every screen in America, and the hashtag Ellen Exposed shot to #1 worldwide within the hour. The footage was devastating. Ellen's mask slipping, her desperate tears, her violent outburst pointing and screaming at Judge Judy while security backed away. But the clip that broke the internet was Judge Judy's ice-cold delivery. The real Ellen DeGeneres. No cameras, no script, no fake smile, just pure venom. That 10-second soundbite got 40 million views on TikTok before midnight, spawned thousands of reaction videos, and became the most shared celebrity takedown in social media history. Teen influencers were making response videos. Late night, hosts were scrambling to rewrite their monologues, and Ellen's name was trending in 17 countries. The floodgates opened immediately. Former Ellen Show employees came crawling out of the woodwork, no longer afraid to speak their truth. Sarah Mitchell, the head writer mentioned in Judge Judy's complaints, posted a 20-minute YouTube video that got 5 million views in 6 hours. Judge Judy gave me the courage to finally tell my story, she said through tears. Ellen destroyed my mental health, but I was too scared to speak up because she has so much power in Hollywood. Not anymore. The video was shared by celebrities, news outlets, and millions of ordinary people who finally understood the truth behind Ellen's fake kindness empire. Twitter became a battlefield. Justice for Ellen victims competed with "Nah, thank you, Judge Judy" as trending topics, while Ellen's supporters tried desperately to defend her with Ellen is kind. But they were drowned out by an avalanche of employee testimonies. A former producer named Marcus Johnson live tweeted his entire horrific experience working for Ellen, describing panic attacks, therapy sessions, and the 3-hour hallway punishment Judge Judy had mentioned. His thread got retweeted 2 million times and made international news. The entertainment industry moved with lightning speed to distance itself from Ellen. Warner Brothers released a statement saying they were reviewing all partnerships with Ellen's production company. Major sponsors started pulling ads from her show's reruns. Netflix quietly removed Ellen's comedy specials from their platform. A-list celebrities who had appeared on her show began posting carefully worded statements about supporting workplace safety, without mentioning Ellen by name, but everyone knew what they meant. Judge Judy, meanwhile, became an overnight folk hero. Her calm, dignified destruction of Ellen was hailed as a masterclass in justice. Judge Judy for President started trending as people praised her for doing what no one else had the courage to do. Her own show's ratings skyrocketed as fans tuned in to see the woman who had single-handedly ended Ellen's reign of terror. Late night, host Stephen Colbert summed up America's feelings perfectly. Judge Judy didn't just expose Ellen, she performed a public service. She showed us what real strength looks like when it's used to protect the powerless instead of destroying them. The most devastating blow came when Ellen's own wife, Portia de Rossi, released a statement through her publicist. "I am deeply disturbed by these revelations and need time to process what I've learned about my spouse's workplace behavior." The Yonsei statement was careful and legal, but the message was clear: their marriage was over, and even Ellen's closest ally had abandoned her. 6 months later, Ellen's daytime empire had completely collapsed. Her show was canceled, Her production company disbanded, and her Montecito mansion sat empty with a for sale sign that nobody dared approach. The woman who once commanded $50 million per year was now unemployable, her name synonymous with workplace abuse and fake kindness. Hollywood had erased her so completely that even her star on the Walk